So welcome to FACT's webinar called Scaling Up Pastured Poultry Production. Our presenter today is Bruce Hennessey with Maple Wind Farm in Vermont. This webinar is hosted by Food Animal Concerns Trust. I am Larissa McKenna. I'm FACT's Humane Farming Program Director, and I will be moderating today's session. Great to have you all. So a few minutes to do some quick introductions before we dive right in. Food Animal Concerns Trust or FACT. We are a national nonprofit organization. We are headquartered in Illinois, and we promote the safe and humane production of meat, milk, and eggs. I work directly with farmers across the country in our humane farming program. We offer grants. Just so you know, those applications are currently being accepted. Scholarships, personalized materials, and mentorship, and of course, a variety of webinars on different topics. So I invite you to visit our website to learn all about our farmer services and also check out our grant application and perhaps submit an application. So this time I'm very pleased to introduce our presenter, Bruce Hennessey. Bruce is the co-owner and operator of Maple Wind Farm in Richmond, Vermont. Bruce has been farming diverse pasture-raised livestock with his partner Beth for 21 years. They have grown their poultry operation by 250% in the last 7 years and have also eliminated or scaled back on a number of other enterprises during the same period. So we're really lucky, super lucky to have Bruce. He's presented at multiple other conferences, and I'm so glad that he could join us today. I think without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to him so that he may begin his presentation. I'm going to take myself off of the video cam, and Bruce, take it away.
Hello all, I hope you can hear me. I'm up here in Huntington, Vermont. Where it's currently raining and 45 degrees. So we're heading into deep fall, and it's been a fun, great season out here, but we're starting to wind down. So this is about scaling up. There's a lot about this that is not just about scaling up poultry production, but also scaling up for processing poultry as well, and I think the two go hand in hand. I'm happy to take questions as we go. If I'm not able to split my attention between the chat room and the presentation well enough to catch them, I'll catch them at the end. I did read many of the people's questions from yesterday, so I will try to touch on as many of those as I possibly can, and if I don't get to what you need, I'm happy to take any questions at the end. All right, so here we go. We are want to start with our mission. I think that any viable farm operation needs eventually to come to a mission statement that really makes clear all of the activities that you do on the farm. And for us, this is our mission statement. I trust you all can read that, but we are primarily involved with promoting health and welfare of our community, producing high-quality pasture-raised meat, and regenerating soil and water resources. I'm moving along fairly quickly. For some reason, I am there. There we go. All right. Farm. Moving a little slow for me.
It might be lagging for you, Bruce, so yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. So this is our mix of enterprises here on the farm right now. We have our beef cattle, they're tall grass grazers. We have our cleaners and fertilizers, that's our poultry flock. We have egg layers, we have broiler chickens, and we have turkeys on pasture. And then we have our renovators and compost converters. We do about between 150 and 200 hogs a year, all on pasture. And then slaughter and processing. For poultry in particular, though, we do some pork, sausage making, and cut up on the farm as well. It is taking a moment for these slides to come up. There we go. So a brief history of Maple Wind Farm. We started on one farm property in Huntington, Vermont, and then we expanded to several other farms. We started first with beef cattle, 100% grass-fed beef, Angus Devon cross beef cattle. That was our primary enterprise until the market changed severely about 7 or 8 years ago, and we have moved to having poultry as our primary enterprise. So as I mentioned before, we have production reds or golden comets for egg layers. We run 2,000 of those on pasture each year. We're going to be doing about 25,000 broiler chickens on pasture this year and 1,200 turkeys on pasture this year. We also do pigs. They're ostensibly heritage pigs. We call these Tamberks. They're Tamworth Berkshire crosses, and they do really well out on pasture. And any place that we want to convert or reseed, we put pigs in there, and they tear it up for us, and then we change the pasture mix. We had sheep for a long time, and for a number of years, we were just up on the Huntington farm, and then we were able to expand down to Richmond, Vermont, and Bolton, Vermont, to additional properties through leasing and purchasing, and also spent 17 years growing organic vegetables, from as many acres as 20 acres in production down to 6. From a CSA model to a wholesale model. So we've done a lot of different things over the years. A big addition in 2013 was processing under inspection rather than through the non-inspected exemption that Vermont has. One of the things that's really helped pushed us to chart our course in a different way over the years has been many of the calamities that have hit the farm. We've had barns dropped by wind. We've lost a barn to fire back in 2014. We've had major floods through hurricanes coming through. This is tropical storm, actually, Irene, that put a 30-acre field of ours under 8 feet of water, and then market forces. And I would say that out of all of these, market forces have actually kind of changed and had us adapt our business in a really dynamic way over the years. So one of the things that we've been missing, I wonder if we skipped a slide here. No. So one of the things that we've been missing over the years has been a clear vision. And one of the thoughts that I have for folks out there that haven't looked into this process for their own farms or own operations is to imagine building a house without a plan. And I guess you could just go out and you don't even know what the size of the house is going to be, whether you're going to have 2 stories or 1, how many rooms are there going to be, how big are the rooms going to be, what are the appliances going to look like, where do they fit, how big are they, all of those things. And so having a chart or a place, a definite direction of where we're going to go is a big piece of actually producing a a great farm business. And for us, we've been doing this now for the last 8 years, really producing a vision and updating it. Back in 2018, we came up with this 5-year vision, and these are all the points that we came up with. And everything that we do, everything that we have been doing in the last 2 years and will be doing in the next 3 are pointing to all of this vision as we move forward. So from what our profit's going to be, this is on top of owner compensation, to how our community views us and how we view them. Our staff clearly grounded in their roles, and are they held accountable? Have we reduced or eliminated all non-essential tasks and equipment in enterprises? That comes along with identifying which of those things are essential, but often it's easier to identify what's not essential. We're developing a culture of constant improvement with a staff of 20 people during our growing season. We're trying to work on work-life balance. So we've gone to a schedule of 4/10s each week where people are only working 40 hours a week, including owners. We're building soil health, fertility, and organic matter every day. Everyone's paid a living wage, and all of us have opportunities to improve and go forward. And those are the big things. Along with that, we've realized that there's only 3 ways to increase profit. It can be all or just one of these that will make the difference in your particular operation. But there's only 3 ways. You can reduce overhead, and that's basically land and labor, and along with labor comes the equipment that labor needs to actually do their work. You can increase your gross margin per unit, which means that you're just making a little bit more money per unit, so you have reduced your direct costs and been able to come up with a price in your market that actually works to increase that gross margin. And then once you've increased that gross margin, or when you have a good gross margin, you can increase turnover. So in other words, you can do more units at that good gross margin with your current overhead. So we operate on those 3 principles, and in terms of our commitment to profit on the farm, we operate in those 3 operations. So we've applied our vision and also our those 3 rules of profit making to all of these enterprises that we've decided not to do anymore. And so I think a discussion before you decide to scale up, a discussion about what it means, and what kind of operation actually moves you forward, and what kind of operation is holding you back, is a really salient point. So that's something that we've applied to our own operation. We used to milk cows, and we had a very small raw milk dairy for a while. We also used to do cow calf to finish for our beef cattle. We no longer do that anymore. Turns out the cow calf operation is actually a different enterprise from a stocker operation, which is a different enterprise from the finishing operation. And now we just finish cattle on grass. We used to horse farm. We did all of our cultivation for our vegetables with horsepower. We don't do that anymore. We used to maple sugar, which is a whole new set of tools and skills. We had a lot of fun doing that, but it wasn't making us money, so we decided to stop doing that. We also used to farrow hogs and take their offspring to finish. Now we buy in feeder piglets and take them to finish on pasture. As I mentioned, we did organic vegetables for 17 years. and it just wasn't giving us the return that we hoped for. Even though it was profitable, it wasn't enough profit to keep as a part of our enterprise mix. The grass-fed lamb, that was very difficult. We also were profitable there, but it wasn't enough. Didn't have a high enough profit to stay. And we also hayed for 20 years. And believe it or not, we've found that the elimination of the hay enterprise to be extremely profitable for us. And we can go into more of that, but we've left a lot of those things behind. So here's some common themes of enterprises that don't work. Too much time and energy compared to the return. I've talked about that. It doesn't connect ecologically or financially with other enterprises. So for instance, our maple sugaring didn't really connect with our other main enterprises. If it doesn't fit your resource base, if you don't really have the ability, if you don't have the grass, if you don't have the water to grow good grass, maybe, there are certain operations or enterprises you shouldn't be doing. If we have too many enterprises and we really can't give each enterprise the amount of focus it deserves, then that's a reason to choose a few that you're good at and that you can really focus on and let the other ones go. And for us, for instance, if the emotional aspect is the strongest positive for that enterprise, time for it to go. If it's an emotional decision to keep it, then it's really more of a hobby. For me in particular, that was horse farming. I loved doing it. I loved working with the horses. But the truth was that it was actually detracting from everything else in the farm and making us less profitable. And if something really compromises your values, for instance, if you were to, for me, compromising my values would be the only way I can see myself being profitable and doing well would be to have a feedlot or a CAFO operation for me, for my values. That wouldn't work. So I would drop that. So we'll start there. All right. So there are some questions up, and it looks like some people are on are asking about grain prices and grain costs. So they're asking about whether the pasture-based chicken system can come anywhere close to meeting a larger portion of the chicken demand that's out there. And I guess the short answer for me on that is that that we should allow economics to drive that force. So our chicken costs a lot. We do have a lot of lower income folks who buy our chicken, and they're buying it because they know it's a healthier option for them, and they just eat a lot less of it. And that's something that we would that we encourage people to think about. We use a non-GMO ration. It doesn't use fish meal. It does use soy, but it's a non-GMO soy. And I think from our perspective, that's a healthy choice with pasture added into the mix. So that's it. And I do think that people should eat less CAFO model meat. That's my opinion. And if that means that they're going to eat less meat from us, I mean, look, it sounds like we're a very big farm, but in fact we're absolutely tiny versus the demand even for the highest end chickens out there. So that's something that I would allow the market to establish. If you're doing it in a pasture-based model, it's going to cost more, and I think that will get people to buy less if it costs more. All right, looking at this slide. So what is the motivation to change or invest, and what are the factors in our decisions to expand, add or subtract? So for us, some of the big motivations was that we were, as a business, we're sitting in the dreaded middle. We were too small to really afford help financially and stay profitable, but there was too much to do by ourselves. So we would go in ways of hiring more help, and then look at the numbers and say we can't afford to hire help. So should we get much smaller and go out and get outside jobs, or do we want to make this a farm business that pays for our living every day? And we made the decision to get bigger, but there is that great decision to get smaller, do things that you can just do by yourself, and I think that's a perfectly viable option. It's just what fits your particular values, and I think that's a question that can come up in your work on your vision and your mission, and that will inform everything else. So for us in Vermont, there are lots of farms. That excuse the outside noise here. I apologize. There are lots of farms who are doing many of the things that we're doing, and we needed to differentiate from others. And so for us, the local market, the local food movement here has really reached maturity. And so we didn't want to be among dozens of other folks who were doing a small amount of pastured poultry, and we needed to really differentiate and make ourselves a little different from the rest of the herd, so to speak. So that was a big motivator for us. There's also, because there were lots of choices, there was downward price pressure, and we needed to find a way to deal with the fact that people were expecting lower prices. And I would just, based on the last statement I made about our high prices, and they are very high compared to what you can buy chicken in the grocery store for. We still felt downward price pressure in our market, which is the high end, the high quality pasture-raised market, from lots of folks doing the same thing as us. So we needed to find a way to differentiate from those folks. And then, what are the opportunities, right? Market, land, and financial opportunities. So someone's asking what our price is. So our price at market is $5.85 a pound at retail. That's direct to consumer. And right now we're selling $4.25 a pound wholesale to stores, restaurants, and other distributors. So we had a lot of opportunities in Vermont. Vermont is one of those places that really supports farmers and is in transition out of what has been a small dairy economy for farming, and Vermont really values their working landscape. So there was a lot of opportunity there and a lot of support for farmers wanting to do that. So we had, for instance, a small state-inspected mobile processing unit that went out of business back in 2012, and that represented 30,000 small farm birds lost to the market, and we saw that as an opportunity. We had the opportunity to be the only farm doing this at scale, and what that means is the only farm that was doing pastured poultry at scale and also processing it on farm. So being that has had some major benefits for our business, and there was a lot of support for a business wanting to move forward in this arena in our area, and I suspect that that's true in a lot of states out there, in a lot of agricultural states. All right, so we identified these areas for expansion: effective poultry processing, we're in a small state in Vermont. We wanted to be able to sell across state lines, and for us, that meant to become inspected, USDA inspected, so that we could sell into all of the New England states, into New York, all of those areas. So that was a big piece of that. We also wanted to provide a service to other farms. We knew that there was a market for that. So we could actually make a profit doing other people's birds as well. And we wanted to add value. So right now we're doing chicken sausage and turkey sausage and pork sausage out of our USDA facility, which is all made from our own product, and that has been an incredible boon for our business. And we're able to sell into all markets. There's really no barrier. We wanted to sell to institutions. Right now, one of our main wholesale customers is the University of Vermont Medical Center, and they simply weren't going to buy a product that wasn't USDA inspected. So we had the land base to increase our pasture-raised chicken and turkey production up to 40,000 broilers per season, up to 1,000 turkeys per season, and up to 3,000 laying hens. We also had the land base to finish up to 50 steers per season and up to 200 hogs per season. And the other big piece that we saw for expansion and that we're currently working on is capturing more of the value chain. So we've invested in an online store platform, retail. We've added value, as I spoke about before, to raw products. We have a major marketing plan, online marketing plan, and we've instituted just this year home delivery, which has reduced that convenience barrier for folks getting food straight from the farm. And I've always said it's better to be lucky than really good. And having already planned and put this into effect, the home delivery piece, as COVID came down the pike in March, we were perfectly positioned to pivot to that as a primary source of sales in March, April, and through the summer. I see some questions in there that I really appreciate. I'm going to push on a little bit. I can say right now we're paying for grower feed. You'll have to do the price per ton calculation yourself. We're paying 22 cents a pound for grower feed. And so how do we reconcile our high price with the need for greater food access? Many of the folks that we sell to, particularly our direct customers, and this was true during COVID when we were doing free home delivery in our delivery area, was that people were spending, first of all, we do take EBT, so basically food stamps, and we have the capacity to do that. People were spending their food dollars on high quality protein from us rather than buying low quality protein, and they were buying less of it, but they were buying it from us because they know the value of high quality protein. We also are in the position where we're able to donate literally tons of chicken product to the food bank, mostly through chicken frames that we don't have a great market for, and that becomes high quality protein and fat for the food bank to put out for food insecure people. One of the things I guess I'll say, one of the things I also say about that food access piece is that cheap food is cheap for a reason, and I think people will go a long ways. They'll bend over backwards to pay as little as possible for their food and pay just about everything they have to cure themselves of the disease that they get as a result of eating that cheap food. And I think we have a bunch of customers who have come to that realization that actually buying higher quality, healthier food in smaller quantities has been a better choice for them financially, even in a low income situation. So, so I think before you, so I know that the name of the webinar is, or the title of the webinar is to, scaling up pasture poultry production. And I don't think you can have a conversation about that until you are secure in your processing. So that was a major part of our increase. I mean, I'll show you our trajectory later on, but we really couldn't move forward without having processing in place. And that's because there was no processing for us at all available within a 5-hour drive of our farm. So we had to put processing in place. So we made that major investment. We had a lot of help with that. I'll show you how we got there. We don't have a lot of our own disposable income, so this all came from creative financing through different avenues. And I will definitely go into that as we move forward. So this was a major investment. We decided to buy. We were actually the first farm in the country to buy a plant in the box, which is it's supposed to be a plug-and-play, USDA inspectable poultry processing unit built into an 8x40 shipping container. It was built out in Missouri by the folks that own Featherman Poultry Equipment. You can see folks that are familiar with that. We'll see one of their pluckers here. This is one of their Killcone stands. One of our big decisions was to look at either building within an existing building or trying to build out within an existing building, and have that, really do everything we needed to do to get an inspectable poultry processing unit, or buying something that was ready to go. And when we looked into buying a plant and actually building one on the ground, it was going to be about $150,000. And we did the plant in a box for less than half of that. Now, that's not by square footage. That was just by what we needed to produce that. And right now we kill 1,000 birds through this unit each day that we do slaughter. So it's kind of rated for 1,000 birds a day, and right now we're at that level. So 150,000 to build out, and about 75,000 to put this into place. Permitting is always a state-by-state issue. I can't help you outside of Vermont, but I can say that in Vermont, under accepted agricultural practices, if we were actually raising the birds, more than 50% of the birds that go through our processing plant are raised by us, then we did not have to go through the very onerous development permitting that people do in Vermont if they want to build, for instance, a commercial poultry processing plant that is just doing outside birds. So it's very friendly in Vermont. Very often, many states who are agriculturally oriented will have this ability to sidestep the tough development regulations and be able to move ahead with these programs as long as it's on-farm processing. So it's primarily for our own livestock. And we also worked with the Agency of Ag to design. If they could design the wastewater system, they would pay for 80% of it. If we didn't want to use their design, then we would have to pay for all of it. And then they would still come and inspect us. So that was kind of a no-brainer there. So we got into some very, very creative financing. We went, first of all, we were able to sell the development rights of our farm to the Vermont Land Trust. So that was a very easy decision for us because we didn't ever want to see the legacy of our farm turn out to be homes or subdivisions or anything like that. So it was easy for us to say, okay, we're going to sell you the development rights and use that money to help us finance the processing plant. We went to one of our primary markets, City Market, which is a kind of it's a combination of just a regular grocery store and a high-end natural foods market, and it's co-op owned, and they were really interested in having our product and promoting local product. And when we went to them and said, hey, we know we're going to have a non-GMO pasture-raised chicken product that's locally grown and processed on farm, they said that is the best attribute that we could hope for and sell. I mean, of course, people would say, well, why not organic? Well, why not organic is that it would be 50% higher price point for us in our location and at our scale. So City Market was really interested. So they said, yep, we're gonna give you a no interest loan and let you pay it off over 5 years to help you do this. And then the state of Vermont came out with a grant program that was helping farms stay as working land. And so we applied to them and received, and this was a 50% cost share. They wanted us to have some skin in the game, which makes a lot of sense, I think. And we ended up getting a 50% cost share on about a third of this project. So that was very helpful. And we ended up not having to take out a loan from a bank or other financial institution. So inspected or not inspected. Now, some of you are out in states that have really much easier exemptions for people who want to process poultry. I know, for instance, Texas, you can do up to 20,000 birds without inspection. You do have to have an inspectable facility, but you can do up to 20,000 birds without inspection. And if you have that in your state, I would suggest looking into that before you dive into inspected processing. But we felt we had to be under inspection, and these are the things that you need to do to be under inspection. We had to build an inspectable facility, which I think everyone does if they want to do anything at scale. That's washable walls, stainless fittings, et cetera, et cetera. For that, we also had to write a HACCP plan. That's a hazard analysis critical control point. I can go into more detail on that for people who have questions about that, which involves sanitary standard operating procedures, SSOPs, and other standard operating procedures that we have to follow. There's an inspector present at all times during slaughter. So they make a decision on every bird, whether it can go into commerce or not. We have to conduct microbiological testing for E. coli and Salmonella to demonstrate that our process is safe and clean. And as a result, we can sell to all outlets, and we can further process anything. We can part, we can grind, we can make sausage, we can dry cure, we can do all those things. So yes, and I do mean the State Department of Ag. Yes, the Vermont State Department of Ag. We have, on any given day, our standard is to have 9 people in our processing to do 1,000 chickens in about a 10-hour period. So Missy asked me what education about high quality food did you have to do for the demand for our product to work? Um, the state has done a lot of that education for consumers. We are constantly out there with information about what we do and why this is different from your standard. Um, I think I'm gonna kind of skip over half of. I know people are interested. We can talk about this at the end if people are more um, into that. But this is the HACCP plan is a very difficult thing to do. Though not impossible, you can hire consultants to help you. You can do all sorts of things. There are lots of example plans out there that you can adapt. But it's a heavy lift at the beginning. Once you have it going and you get used to it, it's not so bad. All right, so just a quick look at what we have on our in our plant. We have a dirty side. This is 1 to 2 people. They kill, beat out the birds, make sure they're dead, scald them at 148 for about 45 seconds, and then pluck. And we can be at about 200 birds per hour doing that. On the clean side, we hang them on these shackles here. It runs on this rail. Right now, we're actually in process of putting in a motorized shackle system, but right now but that isn't installed yet. So we have usually 7 people for a large number of birds for 1,000 bird day. Hang, wash down the bird after it comes out of the plucker. We take the heads and the feet off. We take the oil gland off as well. Some people take the tail. Do a J cut around the vent and eviscerate. That's pulling all of the viscera out of the bird. Once we do that, the inspector gets in there, says, yep, this bird is good for commerce, and they're generally looking at the liver and the heart to see if the bird was healthy. We take the giblets, that's the liver and the heart, and do a final wash, a quality control, and then it goes into chill crates and rolls into our air chiller. And I can talk more about that if people are interested at the end. Right now, because we built a barn after our barn fire, we can now also simultaneously part and package while other groups on the farm are handling the slaughter. So. When we first got the plant in the box, it was the first one, and so there were a lot of problems with the design. We did have to add some things in. We had to add a new floor with better drainage. We had to put in a wall separating the clean and dirty sides. That was a requirement by the inspectors. We did have to put in a new evisceration rail and trolley system because the one that we got was not made out of stainless steel, and rust is a no-go for inspectors. So we did have to change that out, and we needed to improve lighting for the inspector. The plant in the box should get credit for making those changes and paying for those changes after it was ascertained that we needed them. And we also needed a way to do hands-free rinse stations and sinks so that we weren't contaminating contaminating the faucets as we were trying to wash our hands and things like that. So this is one of the big challenges with poultry processing, is finding and retaining labor. It's very challenging to find people these days in the U.S. citizens who want to do this work. We have been able to do that. We haven't hired immigrant labor so far. For us, it's seasonal because we're pasture raised. We do not do this outside of, it's a 3-season work, so we do it starting in May and end in November. Um, and we, you know, we find that there are really specialized skills involved. It takes a long time to get nice skills down to the point where you're really effective and quick, but also clean. So that's difficult. We've had some reliability issues with folks that are interested in this work. There is an injury risk from carpal tunnel. If you haven't been through that, that's a problem with kind of repetitive motion in your hands, particularly. In safety, we've had some cuts. You can mitigate some of that, but it still is a problem at times. We have to pay at least $13 an hour in our area to get anyone to think about doing this for us. We really have to have people who are gung-ho and ready to do this and want to have a fun and creative environment. And one of the big things that we found is really taking to heart the problems that our employees are having on the line and working immediately to make things better. So we are always advocating for better conditions in the poultry plant. And this year we've had an easier time finding labor, but we've still had a lot of reliability issues. So in terms of working with inspectors, so someone's asked the question, where did you get your direction from your inspection requirements? There's volumes and volumes of regulations that you can look up on the Federal Meat Inspection Service, FSIS. I would not recommend reading all of those until you have to. I would recommend taking a HACCP course. They're generally between $500 and $700 or 3 days. And to have a USDA inspected plant, you must have at least one person in your operation that is HACCP certified. And I'm that person for our operation. We just got our second HACCP certified person spun up this year. For us, it's been a great experience working with inspectors. We did 13 years of non-inspected poultry processing before we became inspected, and we really thought we did a great job. And for the most part, we did. But since getting started, I've learned that we really weren't nearly as good as we thought we were. And through working with inspectors whose sole job should be to make sure that you're putting out a clean, wholesome, and safe product, we've learned to be much, much better. And that's not to say that there isn't some red tape and some issues working with governmental inspectors. There definitely is. But we've taken the tack that we're going to work with them, that we're going to be respectful, and that's made all the difference for us. So we actually started with as state inspected. If you have a state meat inspection service, I would start with that. For us in Vermont, it's a tiny state. The Vermont state inspectors are also the Vermont USDA inspectors. So they helped us get ready for moving to USDA. We got started. We got our basic HACCP done and got started. And then once we actually got started and were able to work through some of the concerns that our inspectors had, they helped us review our HACCP plan and make it better. We were always receptive to their concerns. For the most part, they're reasonable people, and they want, at least here in Vermont, they want us to be, they do want us to be successful. It does help, however, to know the rules as well or better than your inspector does, and often we do know them better. But we've always developed relationships, and as a result, we have a reputation for being folks that are really interested in doing the right thing, and that's made it a lot easier on us. So I think I've said all this. There's some You know, one of the things is you always want to be early. If you make a mistake, you always want to come forward with it. Online label approval is really onerous. You got to you have to leave at least 6 weeks to get your labels approved. That can be a really difficult operation. So it's our process was the same moving from state to USDA, just and the same inspectors. So I guess we're lucky in that respect. Yes, Michelle asked if our water has to be inspected. It's not inspected. We do have to have a water test that says that it is potable, and so safe for human consumption. I think any health department in any state in the country has a service that will test your water, and we do a twice yearly water test, and that helps us, or that's required, and that goes into our HACCP plan, and the inspectors can see that we have safe water. I will talk a little bit more about air chilling here in just a moment. Oh, I'm going to go back, actually. One of the ways that we could afford to pay off the investment into our poultry processing unit was processing birds for other farms. And the only way you can do that is if you're inspected, right? So these were some of the rules that we've come up with for our outside producers. They only meat breed chickens and turkeys. We don't do spent layer hens or other breeds. We will do heritage breeds or different kinds of breeds like kosher kings and freedom rangers, but we will not do spent layers and other things that are much harder to process. A customer has to have at least 30 chickens or 10 turkeys. We often have customers that are that are larger than that. So we've become a real source for businesses that are trying to do this for themselves in our state. The chickens have to be in crates, and they have to be the number of chickens that we want in a crate that works with our system. They have to withhold feed the day before, and they pick up their chicken. They have to pick up their chicken fresh the next day. We won't hold it or store it for them. In 2020, our per bird cost to outside producers $6 per chicken and $1 per pound for turkeys with a $12 minimum. And then we charge $3.50 per bird for parting. And parting is really something that we do only if we have the time to do it for outside producers. And this year we've been able to do more and more of that. We've had issues with bird cleanliness coming from other farms. Had issues with people not withholding feed or actually pulling birds the night before, and without birds having access to water and being able to move around, they haven't been able to clear their crops, things like that. We've had folks come in late, which is an issue because we're sitting there paying staff and waiting for birds to show up. And an inspector can actually refuse to allow birds to be done if they come in really dirty crates or totes. We've had a lot of positive feedback. We've done a great job for folks, but it's always been harder than our own birds, and it's taken more time, mostly because the product is less consistent than our own. All right, starting basic economics. 2012. This is what we were doing before we got the plant online. This is our labor. We were doing about $3.20 per bird. That's with 8 people doing about 300 birds in 10 hours. We used a lot of ice, about 40 cents per bird, 30 cents for bags and labels, 50 cents for cleaning supplies, propane, all of that stuff. Total operating cost is about $4.30 a bird. Charged $5.50 at that time. That left us about $1.30 per bird for depreciation, overhead, and for any net profit. So we had a big barn fire. So we rolled in the plant in a box in 2013. In January 2014, our large 16,000 square foot barn burned to the ground. This was where we had all of our brooder space. We had offices, bathroom, a small farm store, and all our dry and frozen and refrigerated storage. That was a huge existential threat to us. As you can see, we did end up rebuilding. And as a part of that rebuilding, we decided to put in an air chilling system, a small air chiller, and we got some support from the state to do that. Air chilling is a spectacular process that is much cleaner, more food safe, and makes for a tastier bird than ice water chilling. And I can go into the reasons why here in a little bit. We were able to put in more processing space so that we could add value. There's also a distribution center. So we had an opportunity here, and we did. And what this did was it really drove our pasture poultry. We had a much slower expansion plan, and with the fact that we went into debt to build this new space, really made us put things into high gear. So I mentioned air chilling. Air chilling has been a huge benefit to us. There's a couple of different things. First of all, we can slaughter more birds in a day because we don't have to have water chilling space, tanks, etc. We just never had room to do more than 400 or 500 birds. So now we can roll in even more than 1,000 birds into our air chiller, which is it's just a blast chiller that we put in as part of the new barn, and it has variable speed motors so that when the temperature is down 2 temps in the area, we are able to the energy needed is much reduced to keep things cool. So what are the benefits? So if you put a contaminated bird, and that's the big concern that USDA and all of us should have about birds. If you have a bird that has fecal matter on it, for instance, or ingesta, all of which can have food safety issues, and you put that bird into a tank that has 100 other birds into it, you've just contaminated all of those other birds. For us, we put them into crates with 6 or 7 other birds. They don't commingle within the same liquid. They're just in the air, and they can't cross-contaminate, except for maybe the bird that's right next to them. So we put them into these crates. They have holes on the side so air can circulate easily, and we stack those crates. There's no liquid kind of falling down through the crates at all. It's just all separated. And so in general, if we have a contaminated bird, it's just one contaminated bird. So it's a much safer food safety operation. We also know that when you water chill birds or ice water chill birds, they retain between 5 and 8% of their weight in water, and some of that water is not just water. It could be blood from other chickens. It could be fecal matter or ingesta. It could be all these different things. And so we've made the case to our customers, and we've talked to them that we're selling them chicken. We're not selling them water. We're selling them chicken, and that's a big piece. So it is a financial hit. We put that into our calculations. It is a financial hit. We not only don't sell it, we actually lose about 1% of body weight in water evaporation within our air chiller. We have found that the product that comes out of the air chiller is a much more tender product because it hasn't it hasn't been soaked in water, which actually shortens the muscle fibers in the breast and other places. Get a much more distinct chicken flavor and better overall taste experience. So here's the basic economics for air chilling when we instituted this. So we were able to do a lot more birds. So our labor, 10 staff, 1,000 birds in 10 hours. This is very conservative. We're really more like 9 staff at this point. $15 an hour is about where we're at right now in 2020. The chilling cost is 5 cents less. We have a little higher bag and label cost. We have a little higher cleaning and utility costs, but our operating cost is down below $3. We now charge $6 a bird, so we're fully, we have over $3 to spend per bird on depreciation, overhead, and net profit. And the investment in air chilling in 2017 created operational savings of over $12,000 over our 2015 numbers, based on 26,000 birds processed. So the payback on processing, on the processing room with the air chiller portion of our barn, of our new barn, at current numbers, is 5 years. So we're just now paying that off, but we've been able to do that through that program. So the air chiller is a 10 by 12, but it's quite high. It's probably 10 feet high as well. So we're able to stack things fairly high in there. Ooh, we're boy. All right, so having processing has produced this kind of expansion for us. 2012, we produced 750 broilers and 200 turkeys with exempt on-farm processing, not inspected. Since then, since we put in the plant in a box, this is where we were in 2013. Remember, in 2014, we had our barn fire, and then we got on the expansion train and went from there up to 2020, where we're at 30,000 broilers. So along about in 2018 is when we really put in new methods, air chilling and value added, all put into this mix that made things a lot easier. So the air chiller for us is not connected to the plant in a box. It is connected more, it's part of the new barn. I know that you can get an air chilling system with the plant in a box these days. And I should say that I'm not an employee and not connected with plant in a box at all. As a matter of fact, as the first person to actually bite and order one of those, we had a lot of problems with our plant in a box. I think they've come a long way, in large part through the lessons that they learned on our facility. I do think it's probably the most cost-effective way to get into inspected poultry processing available right now. All right, so when we started to expand, we realized that we were going to have to change the way we did things in the field. We were originally at using small chicken tractors. They were 10 by 12 chicken tractors. Took 2 people about 5 minutes, 75 birds. That includes feed out, making sure they had water, all of the above. In a mobile range coop situation, these are 21 by 36 high tunnels on skids that we move with a truck and an attached gravity wagon that has grain in it. We move 500 birds with 2 people in 10 minutes. So the investment that we made on this, and should pop up here, for us was a no-brainer. And again, we were able to creatively finance that through many of the same avenues that I spoke about before, connected to processing. So here we go. We can go through this very quickly. At one point, we were pulling 50 chicken tractors. We had a dolly, portion of the truck depreciation because we're using the truck to bring feed to the birds, the water system, and all the feeders. That investment is about $14,500 for us. Across the way, 8 mobile field shelters, MRCs. A portion of that of the truck depreciation, again, two gravity wagons, because we have 2 different farms that we operate on. All the feeders and water systems. So here's the kicker. Time to move, feed, and water 50 shelters. Now, people can argue with me that it can take less time than this, and I agree with you. It can. But that's only if nothing goes wrong. So we're moving the same number of birds in an hour and a half that we used to move in about 4 hours. So you can see that the labor, if you go through all this, did redo the math, made sure it was right, about 84 cents per bird before feed costs. And the labor is about 28 cents per bird with MRCs before feed costs. I will also mention that it's much easier on the body as well. So labor cost here for a season at 20 weeks full capacity, $16,800 and $6,300 to move birds at full capacity where we're at right now. So there's some benefits to the smaller idea. You know, if you're only moving 10 or 12 of these, it's easy. It can be done with one person if needed. You can isolate smaller batches if you were to have some kind of outbreak, and it's cheaper to get into. The benefits on the MRC side is that most of the work is done by truck. Feed out efficiency is super quick because we have a gravity wagon that has feed right there, right at the front door. It's actually part of the pulling mechanism. So we pull the house forward, and the feed is literally within 3 or 4 feet of the front door. And it's our team right now, a team of 2 people, can easily move a shelter in 10 minutes. And that includes all feed out, anchoring the shelters, and making sure that the waters are clean and ready to go, all of those things. We had a number of workplace injuries when we were pulling chicken tractors. We needed a larger body frame person who was able to do that. We had a number of really good workers who were mostly women and just smaller. It wasn't that they weren't strong, they just didn't have the body weight to pull forward those, especially over ground that wasn't perfectly flat, which limited our labor pool and also injured those smaller people. And it was very inefficient to feed out those houses. Much more difficult. Negatives on the MRC side, there is more to break down. It can be difficult in wet conditions. You may need a tractor to move MRCs in wet conditions. You do need a larger flat fields with no big rocks in the way to be able to do that. So we reduced our cost of production by over $10,000 in the first year. The payback on our investment was less than 6 years, and it's been worth every penny. It's from our perspective, the actual MRCs are a better shelter for the birds. We can roll up the sides or roll them down depending on the weather. We used to have major problems if we were to have a freak snowstorm in May or late October with birds surviving in chicken tractors. But in an MRC that you can shut down, It's easily 10 to 15 degrees warmer inside just from the ground temperature coming up, and the birds thrive much better, and you can protect them. And we've had snow with no issues. Broilers with snow and no issues, believe it or not. So you can purchase, there are a couple of different models of MRCs out there for commercial sale. We did not do that. We went to our local greenhouse builder and said, hey, this is what we want. We worked with a metal fabricator to make the skids. We had those two folks work together and we made our own, but there are commercial ones for sale. Cobb Creek in Texas is one company that designed one and did it. Another, I think Featherman came out with the Prairie Schooner. There may be others as well. Those are really good products. I've seen them both. They're better than what we built for ourselves, but we're doing pretty well with what we've got. All right, so at scale, pastured poultry for us, we've seen incredible ecological results. 1 to 3% additional organic matter in some of the depleted soils that we've taken over and brought back. Much better forage quality. Yields have been gone from 1.5 tons per acre in one of our poorer fields to 4 tons per acre. And that's our current average, is 4 tons per acre of forage during our growing season, which is essentially from the first week of May to the first week of October, and might grow a very tiny little bit in November. We have very little open soil, only on headlands and roads and recent pig paddocks. We have very high density swards, and the result is that everyone does better. Here are some of the resources that we've used over time, and there's one that's missing here that I just forgot to put on that should be the first one that, if you're not involved already, that you should look into, and that is the American Pastured Poultry Producers Association, APPPA, American Pastured Poultry Producers Association. If you haven't heard of it and you're thinking about getting into pastured poultry, that is the place to do it. The rest of these places, some of them are very local and local to me, but the ones I have in yellow are really, really, really things that anyone who's in a farm business can use. The NRCS, of course, Natural Resource Conservation Service through the USDA has helped us with fencing and water systems, ranch management consultants, ranching for profit. You know, we're a farm, we're not a big old ranch out west and all that, but we've taken much of what Ranching for Profit has done, which is basically the course itself is a boot camp for farm businesses to learn how to become a business. And the thing that got me on Ranching for Profit was their tagline, which is your farm a collection of expensive assets and low-paying jobs, or is it a business? And that hit home for us. And since taking that course and also maintaining a board of our peers to help us stay accountable on all the action plans that we have to move our business forward, we have made great strides in profitability and in having the tools to make really big decisions. So I highly recommend looking into that if you're serious about having a farm business. And here are a couple of other, Featherman Plant in a Box, I mentioned those guys. They're worth looking into if you're thinking about processing. And here are 2 books, Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. If you have a small business, this is a system that will resonate with you. We just started using it 2 years ago. We actually do take our profit first. Every time we take a deposit in the bank, we're putting profit away for ourselves. And that is, and what that does is it forces us to run the business on just a few percentage points less money than we take in. And Essentialism by Greg McCowan. This is really learning how to eliminate the things that are non-essential in your business and move forward with what is truly essential. And that process has really allowed us to focus on the most important things that move us forward. And I see a few other questions here. Let me see. You're welcome for the informative presentation. And how many chickens per acre do you run? I don't really have a per acre number. What I do have is that we move our MRCs every day. And we also use MRCs for our layers, and we use them for our turkeys. The only difference is that we do provide much more pasture for our layers and turkeys. They just need more space. And we do that with electric netting, with livestock guard dogs inside for predator protection, inside their net paddock. So we stick with, for chickens, we stick with a 1.5 square feet per bird in our MRCs. And so whatever, 21 by 36, we move that forward every single day. 500 birds in there. And we probably have our first birds out the first week of May, and we end the first week of November. We have 8 of those houses. So you can do the acreage calculation there. I haven't really done it. We're understocked for the amount of land that we have. Right now, our broilers are run on, and you have to understand that we're also grazing cows on these acres as well. Our broilers are run on about 60 acres of open land, and our turkeys are run on about 12 acres of open land. And our layers are run, we have 2,000 layers, and they're run on about 30 acres of land for the season. And thanks to Larissa for putting up that appa.org. I appreciate that. Do we have to irrigate? Well, we're in Vermont, and we're fairly wet environment. However, we've actually experienced a lot of droughts in what Easterners or Northeasterners would call a drought. We did have 6 weeks with no rain this summer. And I don't have irrigation for after the birds move through, and I wish I did during the drought section this year. We still had really, really dynamic regrowth of grass, mostly because we've added organic matter to our soil over the years largely through poultry, pastured poultry production. We don't clip grass very often. We'll just run it over with our MRCs and allow the birds to peck through it, and then drop fecal on it. And that produces an incredible amount of organic matter going into the soil. And so every percent of organic matter that you put into this, that you actually add to your soil profile, will give you 22,000 gallons of water holding capacity, an additional 22,000 gallons of water holding capacity per acre, and will sequester 1.4 tons of carbon per season per acre. Additional. And so we're focused on adding organic matter, and what we see is that even during those drought periods, we get spectacular regrowth in the areas that we've been able to build more organic matter. And I'm gonna this last slide.
Yeah. Yay! Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So Bruce is obviously has a wealth of information. I think he got through most of the questions that came up. So, and to respect everyone's time, unless there's any last minute breaking ones, I'm just going to move on to kind of like the conclusion here. But we do have Bruce's information. I'm going to CC him on the email tomorrow, the follow-up email with the slides and the recording. So you'll be able to get in touch and check out his website as well. So let me just remind you that those of you that are still stuck around, which is a lot of people, immediately after this, the session ends, you're going to be directed to a very short survey. So if you could take a minute now or even sometime later today or tomorrow to fill it out, there are probably about 3 or 4 questions. They'll be really helpful to us. And again, I'll be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow morning with these documents and some other follow-up stuff and links to our upcoming webinars and to our Fund a Farmer grant application page that I hope folks will also take a moment to check out online. We do have a couple more webinars coming up in October and November. A great silvopasture series with Steve Gabriel, who was with us last spring. So please join us for one or all of those, and we'll be adding some other webinars as well this fall and winter. So let me ask you one last question. There's a question about the water holding increase, Bruce, if you could repeat that before I sign off.
Yes. So for every percent soil organic matter that you add to the soil, was 22,000 gallons of water holding capacity per acre and 1.4 tons of carbon sequestered per acre.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, that was the request from a couple of attendees. But on that note, thank you all for being here. Bruce, it was absolutely wonderful. You have quite a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so happy that you're able to share it with everyone here. It was really, really wonderful, and I'm so glad that we are able to post this later. And everyone that's online here, wonderful to have you, and hope that you'll join us on a future webinar. I hope everyone has a really lovely evening or afternoon, depending where you're at, and we will connect again soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.